some of the words, these are keywords in this conversation. Number one, partners or partnerships, the complex nature of science and environment reporting, and how we can make that simple and then influence and shape conversations around that. I think that is critical, and those words are critical in ensuring that the bigger environmental story is told and told in a very interesting and factual manner. However, one thing that is clear to everyone is that the environmental agenda, whether it's journalism, whether it's through webinars as these or seminars, is still an abstraction to many people in Africa. Whether it's by design or it's accidental, we really haven't managed to make it a very interesting conversation. And a lot of people still do not understand and make the connections between and survival. And so the biggest as journalists is to remove that abstraction from the environment and the environmental agenda generally. For example, global warming has not been discussed in the language of Africans. It has not been discussed in the language of the Kikuyu or the Kamba or the Coastals. It is still, something, even though it's important, it has not been contextualized, and conversations normally happen in rather yet there is a lot of and research, but that data seems to be confines of UNEP, for instance, or the researchers that are doing it, and conversations are happening within those confines. They are a lot of times confusing. And so you find that people tell you that yes, environment is important. When you ask them why is it important, they will not tell you. They can see that their rivers are drying up, but they don't know why. They cannot make the connections between the drying river, the drying stream in the village, and the larger conversation around the globe. Then when you bring that to the newsroom, then it becomes a bit complicated, because for a lot of journalists, reporting on the environment is not an attractive proposition. It's not in the league of politics or sports or business. And that is because of the way such news is treated in many newsrooms, or how it is consumed by the people that we write for. And the impact of their journalism is often quite slow. And when it finally happens, it happens at the macro level. Yet for a lot of people, a lot of journalists, they want to see those impacts at the micro level, at the small community levels happen. And as a result of that, there has been a trend where newsrooms are scaling down on their science and particularly environment. It dismantled its environment desk. It deployed its reporters. So what that means is that many publishers have started to prune, or basically to do away with a desk that they do not believe make a lot of sense at in terms of news. And that is quite tragic, because the interconnectedness of the environment, our lives and livelihoods and all that has been ignored for a very, very long time. And it is upon us as journalists now to bring those conversations to the fore. But when you listen to the panelists in this conversation, and they're talking about sustainability, they're talking about biodiversity, they're talking about renewable energy, then as a journalist, you need to ask yourself one question. If you're to mention those words randomly on the streets of Nairobi, how many people will understand what sustainability is? If those people are not in newsrooms and they are not within the UN system, if you're talking about a subsistence farmer somewhere in the Mara, what is sustainability to that person? What is biodiversity to that person? And what is renewable energy to that person? For us as journalists, therefore, And particularly for me as an editor, I think the biggest calling as far as this subject is concerned is to just do my gatekeeping job the best way I can in deciding what gets assigned and what gets published and in what format. Where is it placed? Is it on page 1 or is it on page 36? Is it a big story or is it a small story? Is it well laid out? Does it have various voices and arguments? Or is it just one person who's talking and there isn't diversity of opinion or diversity of sourcing? Then the other one is capacity building. A lot of that has been talked about today, but capacity building in what format and for what purpose? A lot of time when we talk about capacity building, it turns out to be a hit and run affair. You know, you just come in, train a few journalists in an hour or two, or take them to Mombasa for 2 days, then fly them back. But that is not enough. And actually, it doesn't do a lot. Capacity building takes a lot of nurturing. I've noticed that to train somebody really to be interested in a subject as a reporting subject, it takes a journey. It's like just holding somebody's hand and ensuring that get lost in the way. Now, this is not it's not sports where everything is out there. It's a score. It's a score. It's 2-3, 2-0. It's that. This is science, and the science that must be told in a way that I, as a journalist, and the reader outside there, my audience, understands it. You cannot do that if you do not have the right people doing it, and you do not have the kind of sources that, especially in these parts of the world, are quite scarce. And when I talk about sources, I talk about who among the research in these fields, who among them are willing to be key media resource persons? How available are they on short notice? And what kinds of permissions do they require to openly talk to the media? That creates a problem that for a lot of us in the newsrooms, um, um, it's a bit challenging, and a lot of times it takes a lot of time work. So in a nutshell, therefore, because I see Prof here is starting to get a bit jittery, in a nutshell then, lack of environmental and scientific training, and not training in terms of 2-3 hour courses. It's something that is it's like you have a cohort of reporters, journalists that you just take through a session that lasts more than a month or two, and then limited access to data on environment and conservation. That is not happening, and so it's a bit testy for some of us who are really interested in science reporting. Then the complex nature of this subject is something that we need to, as journalists, simplify, and then citizens' experiences on this. I said, if I'm a subsistence farmer, it becomes very hard for me to start talking about sustainability because the only thing that I'm thinking about is food on the table in the evening. It is important for me to start doing that. In going forward, I think partnerships are important. Partnerships in the sense that this is expensive. For me to do a great story requires a lot of time, a lot of planning. I need to send people boots on the ground. I cannot report it from the office, and that takes money. That takes a lot of effort. We need to have sustainable partnerships that still respect our editorial audiences, but enable us to do our job.